The year is 2003. While the world was basking in the glow of a booming housing market and seemingly endless credit, a small academic journal named the Journal of Post-Keynesian Economics was about to publish an article that would, in retrospect, read like a chilling prophecy. This wasn't a mainstream financial publication. It was a niche journal, read by a few dozen specialists, far from the bustling trading floors of Wall Street or the gilded offices of the Federal Reserve. Yet, within its unassuming pages lay the blueprint for the financial catastrophe that would soon engulf the globe. The author was an economist named Dean Baker, co-director of the Economic Policy Institute in Washington, D.C. Baker was not an outsider. He had a solid academic background and a reputation for sometimes contrarian, though well-reasoned, economic analysis. His chosen publication venue, however, was deliberate. He understood that his arguments would likely be met with skepticism, or worse, outright dismissal, by the established economic consensus. He sought a platform where intellectual rigor, rather than market popularity, was the primary currency. His paper, titled "The Coming Economic Collapse, the Bush Tax Cuts and the Housing Bubble," was not a prediction of doom for its own sake. Instead, Baker meticulously detailed the interconnected financial mechanisms that were, in his view, inherently unstable. He focused on the confluence of factors: an overvalued housing market, fueled by lax lending standards and the proliferation of complex financial instruments, all propped up by a sustained period of low interest rates. To understand Baker's foresight, we must recall the economic climate of the early 2000s. The dot-com bubble had burst a few years prior, and the Federal Reserve under Alan Greenspan had aggressively lowered interest rates to stimulate the economy. This created an environment where borrowing was cheap, encouraging investment and consumption, but also, critically, inflating asset prices, particularly in the real estate sector. It was a deliberate policy choice with unforeseen consequences. The prevailing wisdom among many mainstream economists and policymakers was that the housing market was fundamentally sound. Home prices, they argued, had always risen historically, and there was no reason to expect a nationwide collapse. The mantra was that housing is different, a unique asset class impervious to the speculative excesses seen in stocks or commodities. This belief blinded many to the systemic risks accumulating beneath the surface. Baker, however, saw the housing market not as a stable asset, but as a massive speculative bubble. He pointed to the explosion of subprime mortgages, loans given to borrowers with poor credit histories, and the way these toxic assets were being packaged and sold off to investors worldwide. He understood that the interconnectedness of the financial system meant that a localized problem in housing could rapidly cascade into a global crisis. His analysis was rooted in post-Keynesian economics, a school of thought that emphasizes the inherent instability of capitalist economies, the role of finance, and the importance of effective government regulation. Unlike more neoclassical approaches that often assume markets tend towards equilibrium, post-Keynesians see a constant struggle against inherent uncertainty and potential for crisis, driven by factors like animal spirits and financial fragility. Baker's paper outlined a specific scenario: a sharp rise in interest rates or a significant economic shock would trigger defaults on these subprime mortgages. This would then lead to a collapse in housing prices, a crisis for the financial institutions holding these assets, and a severe recession. He even detailed the potential for government bailouts, a consequence he viewed as both inevitable and deeply unfair to the taxpayers. The core of his argument revolved around the concept of speculative bubbles and the inherent dangers of financial innovation divorced from underlying economic value. He argued that the securitization of mortgages, bundling them into tradable securities, had created a perverse incentive structure. Lenders no longer bore the risk of default. They simply originated loans and sold them on, passing the risk to unseen investors. Furthermore, Baker highlighted the role of the Federal Reserve's prolonged period of low interest rates. While intended to stimulate the economy, these rates made it cheaper to borrow money, thus inflating the housing bubble and encouraging excessive risk-taking. He argued that the Fed was effectively playing with fire. creating an unsustainable asset bubble that was bound to burst, with devastating consequences for the broader economy. The paper's publication in 2003 was met with near silence from the financial establishment. The housing market continued its upward trajectory, and the complex financial instruments Baker warned about became even more sophisticated and widespread. The dominant narrative remained one of prosperity and innovation, making Baker's stark warnings sound like the ravings of a Cassandra, unheard amidst the chorus of optimism. He continued to write and speak about these issues, often through his own platform, Baker's website, and the EPI's publications. He patiently explained the mechanics of the impending crisis, using accessible language to demystify complex financial concepts. His warnings were persistent, detailed, and increasingly urgent as the years passed and the indicators he highlighted grew more pronounced. Then came 2008. The housing market imploded, major financial institutions teetered on the brink of collapse, and the global economy plunged into its worst recession since the Great Depression. Suddenly, Dean Baker's obscure 2003 article and his subsequent consistent warnings were no longer obscure. They were prescient, a roadmap of the disaster that had just unfolded. In the aftermath, Baker's work gained significant recognition, though often with a tone of regret from those who had previously dismissed him. Economists, policymakers, and journalists revisited his 2003 paper, marveling at its accuracy in predicting the complex chain of events. It became a case study in the importance of heeding dissenting voices and the dangers of groupthink in economic forecasting. The 2008 crisis revealed the fragility of a financial system increasingly driven by speculation and complex, opaque instruments. Baker's analysis underscored how a seemingly localized issue, the subprime mortgage market, could destabilize the entire global economy due to the interconnectedness of modern finance. His work highlighted the critical role of regulation in mitigating such systemic risks. His foresight also served as a stark reminder that significant economic warnings can emerge from unexpected places, often outside the mainstream discourse. The Journal of Post-Keynesian Economics, by its very nature, provided a space for critical perspectives that might not survive the editorial filters of more commercially driven publications. This niche platform facilitated a crucial, albeit initially ignored, dialogue. The legacy of Baker's 2003 article is a testament to the power of rigorous economic analysis and the courage to dissent. It illustrates how a deep understanding of financial mechanics, combined with a willingness to challenge prevailing assumptions, can lead to profound insights into future economic events. His work serves as a quiet monument to the forgotten footnotes of financial history. It is a story that reminds us that the most critical insights are not always found in the loudest voices or the most prestigious institutions. Sometimes the clearest vision of the future is written in the margins, in journals read by few, by an economist who simply followed the logic of the numbers where they led. Dean Baker's paper is a powerful example of how academic research, even when initially overlooked, can hold immense explanatory power. It encourages us to look beyond the headlines and the consensus, to seek out the detailed analyses that might just hold the keys to understanding the seismic shifts in our economic landscape. The economic world is complex, and understanding its potential pitfalls often requires delving into the less traveled corridors of research. The story of this prediction, buried in an obscure journal, invites us to explore more such overlooked analyses, for within them often lie the seeds of crucial historical understanding.